Moving with our dialogues, now it's time to think on small and medium enterprises, technology and blockchain. This will be a rapid-fire panel promoted by the co-organizer of the Brazil-Africa Forum 2020, which is the SouthBridge Group. I'm going to start calling here Hamet Aguemon, who is a partner of the SouthBridge Group. Hamet, hello, good morning, good evening. I don't know where you are.
Hello, hello, Caroline. I'm actually in Dubai, so good evening. Well,
okay.
It's about almost 7 o'clock here. Good evening.
Are you well, Hamet? Are you okay? Everything is set? I think you just have some...
Good morning to you.
Can you hear me, Hamet?
Yes, I think we are all ready. Yes, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect.
Yes, okay.
I was just wondering if you are well and safe in Dubai. Is everything okay with you?
Everything is fine. Thank you, Caroline.
Perfect, Hamet. So please feel free to engage with our panelists. We are here just following and can't wait to hear more a little bit about on this very interesting theme.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thanks again, Caroline, for the introduction. And I guess good day to everyone watching us from all over the world. I heard you, mentioning several countries that are actually connected now. My name is Hamet Aguemon, and I'm a partner at SouthBridge. I'm absolutely delighted to be moderating this panel on SMEs, technology, and blockchain. SMEs in Africa are challenged by several hurdles, and this has always been the case pre-COVID. But the pandemic has actually amplified those issues and exposed the lack of safety nets through our system. SME accounts for over 90% of all businesses in Africa. And according to the World Bank, Africa must create 13 million jobs per year. That's over 1 million jobs per month. One of the takeaways from the pandemic is that we need to be closer to our supply chain. Africa, increasing population and consumption, fill that gap. But the current the current financing gap for SMEs, it's around 136 billion per year. We can all agree that SME are the engine that drives economic development, but beside their critical and positive role, they still face numerous challenges, ranging from infrastructure shortage, tax inefficiency, lack of accessible capital and equity capital, poor management skills and competencies. Brazil, on the other hand, has a vibrant and innovative startup and SME ecosystem, a strong sectorial and policy design, agriculture and industry sectors, for instance, to name a few, strong innovative legal framework, and also financing availability. The share of business loan by BNDES, which is Brazil's largest public development bank, to SMEs was at 46.8% in 2018. And also strong support to SME export through guarantees. Africa's rapid recovery and sustainability will have to go through an adequate solution that empowers SMEs and focus on local consumption. But how do we leverage technology to spur our growth? How do we create jobs? And how do we get back on track to our pre-COVID trend? How do we use the pandemic as an accelerator to modernize our economies? To help us expand on the subject and address some of the questions on how we move forward, I have a distinguished panel of entrepreneurs and bankers to share with us their experience. Fatoumata is the founder and executive chair of Janngo and managing partner of Janngo Capital. Simplice Anoh is the founder and CEO of Group Digital Afrique. Jiří Chotěborský is a banker in the telecom and media sector at Standard Bank. And lastly, but not least, Kacou is the co-founder and CEO at ES Partners. Maybe let me start with Fatou. Fatou, you started Janngo, then Janngo Capital. Maybe you want to tell us more about your journey and why, and the need for you to start Janngo Capital as well, and your view on our ecosystem for SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamet, for setting the scene. I believe that the reason why we have set up Janngo is actually in really having in mind that we have 17 million SMEs in Africa. They, as you said, very well represent more than 90% of jobs being created. And in any country, they represent between 20 and 40% of the GDP. That being faced, that being said, they face several hurdles, and I will, I think, talk about three of them in particular. The first one is access to market. The second one is access to capital, and the third one is access to capacity. And interestingly enough, we also see a tech revolution happening in Africa with internet users, mobile phone users, and mobile financial services users increasing very strongly. And we do believe that there is an opportunity for SMEs in Africa to leverage technology to be able to access to market, access to capital, and build capacity. When we look at access to market in particular, this is really something that has been exemplified by several success stories. So in my entrepreneurial journey, I was lucky enough to co-found and lead what is today the largest marketplace on the continent. But what we have to say is that the reason why it has expanded so fast is because it's providing today a route to SMEs to be able to sell, whether it is fashion, cosmetics, or even food, and leveraging a marketing and logistics infrastructure. And I think over the years, 500,000 SMEs were able to leverage these kind of platforms to be able to access to market, whether it is in the domestic country or across Africa. In the second dimension, it's very important. So access to capital is really critically low. It's especially true for SMEs that are a bit early in the value chain. So for instance, venture capital attracted only 2 billion euros last year, when, for instance, when you compare to India, it's like 17 times less money when we have the same demography, where we have the same GDP. And here we also see that across sectors, it's very tough, for instance, if you're not doing access to energy or access to finance, to access to capital. It's also very tough when you are a woman. So out of the gaps that you mentioned, there is a $42 billion funding gap for women SMEs, entrepreneurs in Africa. And all these reasons make it a very strong motivation for people like me to be able to play a financial intermediary role. And the third dimension I would like to emphasize is really also access to capacity. As you can imagine, SMEs have so many things on their plate that it can be tough for them to leverage technology in a very efficient way. And that's why it's so important to have ecosystem players, such as, for instance, Mr. Kacou's organization, that are able to really provide them with management skills, with technical skills, to be able to really leverage technology in order to grow. And if this promise is fulfilled, as the way ahead is very bright, because we see that, again, as you said, we have to create like between 20 and 30 million net jobs. We have today, I think we are creating 3 million net jobs, but actually technology can be a huge catalyzer of that. As there is a study from BCG that is saying that by 2025, online marketplaces in Africa can create actually 3 million net jobs, which is huge, right? So I think if we are able to really leverage technology once again to tackle these hurdles faced by SMEs, they will be even a bigger contributor, not only to GDP, but also to job creations, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatoumata. So the three key points you addressed was, access to market, access to capital, and finally access to capacity. And for you, as you rightly said, technology as a way to leapfrog the development. And by 2035, hopefully, we will the SME market, the technology marketplace can create 3 million net jobs. But thankfully, we have Simplice Anoh with us, who run a technology company across Africa. Simplice, if you can give us your thought on what you do and how those 3 million jobs can be created. And I know we've mentioned blockchain, that is also a hot topic across the continent. So the floor is yours, Simplice.
Thanks, Hamet, again, for giving me the opportunity to share my experience in terms of blockchain. But as Fatoumata says, there's a lot of, hype about blockchain, because, if you look at the SMEs, you have a lot of gap of skills. For example, not many SMEs have done a benchmark to say what has been done elsewhere in the world and how they can replicate it in the world, in the part of Africa. For example, we're currently working on the supply chain management for the warehouse receipt in Ivory Coast. In order to do that, you have to involve many stakeholders like banks, insurance, farmers. It's about building a single platform which can manage the full scale of warehouse receipt, for example, from the farmers to the warehouse holders, to the banks, and to the insurance. So for me, blockchain is not the buzzword. It can really increase efficiency. It can increase trust, and it can also help SMEs to have access to finance. This is very important. If you look at the value chain of, for example, the farmers, from the farmers to the warehouse receipt, you have like a 23% cost of financing because there's no trust. I'm not sure that if I finance your firm, if you are going to deliver the goods to my warehouse, and this platform can solve this issue. In terms of payment today, many SMEs do not have access to financing because they don't have a good track record. They don't have a good, trusted data. I can say that. Look at, if you take the example of Orange Money and MTN Money here, if you have a mobile from Orange, you cannot transfer money from Orange to MTN. There's no interoperability. And so for an SME to be able to put a platform to solve the issue is really a good opportunity. And we're currently working on a platform called Mujalup, who has been implemented in Tanzania, Kenya, to see how we can streamline the processes in West Africa. So for me, there's a huge opportunity for blockchain to unleash the potential for SMEs, but again, there's a lot of obstacles. There's gap of skills, the lack of awareness, and also there's no, regulatory, lack of regulation. Two companies right now in Ivory Coast have been able to set up a platform, Mujalup, I can name them Orange and MTN, but they are not be able to use this platform because of lack of approval from the central bank. So we can say blockchain can solve the issue, but if there's a lack of regulation, blockchain can still be at the early stage and not deliver all its potential. But I'm very happy when I look at countries like Nigeria, we're currently working on what they call fractional real estate management. Before, in order to sell a building, you need to have a lot of money. You need to have access to a lot of capital. Today with blockchain, you are able to divide the real estate in a digital asset so that can lead to more participation from a lot of customers. So I don't need to have 10 million to buy a building. I don't need to buy 5 million to buy a building. With the fractional ownership real estate today, any customer can buy a piece of building. And this would not have been possible without a blockchain. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that we should give, a lot of emphasis on blockchain. On education front, we should help SMEs understand and increase their skill. Again, there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of obstacle, so the impact will be very massive, but how much of it will become a reality for Africa? And again, is knowledge sharing, training for SMEs, and also a lot of benchmarking. That's what I can say for SMEs in Africa.
Thank you, Simplice. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So Simplice, you're telling us that blockchain has a lot of virtues, but we should be a little bit careful. Maybe we'll have time to come back around the myths of blockchain. But one thing I've noticed that you said is, which I guess can apply strongly to the African environment and actually to the world environment today, is that it's increased trust and transparency. And through trust and transparency, that's allowed to mitigate the risk and then provide financing to smallholder farmers or SMEs that don't necessarily have the sufficient track record. But I guess your last point was, we need to provide knowledge transfer and training of SMEs, which has also been one of the points that's been made when discussing SMEs. One of the big obstacles is the lack of training, lack of skill, lack of competency. And maybe let me use that as a transition to go to Eric Kacou, who is the CEO, co-founder and CEO of ES Partners, that's been working with SMEs for several years with thousands of SMEs to tell us more about his journey and his view on the SME ecosystem. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Hamet. Maybe to start, I would like to really emphasize how important the issue of knowledge is to SMEs. At ESP, we actually believe that the only way to help SMEs grow is to provide them with what we call intelligent capital, which is the right combination between funding and technical assistance. Because in certain cases, when all we do is to finance the SMEs and we don't give them the right technical assistance, we don't really help them turn the money that we give them into actual growth, profits, and jobs. So it's critical for us to actually do this. Now, in the panel, I was really interested by some of the points that Fatou and Simplice made. Fatou spoke about market financing and skills, and Simplice spoke about the issue of trust. To me, at the intersection of both of those elements is the issue of information. What I mean by information, when we do surveys of SMEs, and we have done a number of those surveys across the continent, one of the things that they tell us is a challenge is the fact that they actually don't have access to information. They don't have access to information about what kind of financing is available. They don't have access to information about what kind of training is available. Even at the time of COVID, a number of countries announced large amounts of money they were willing to provide to the SMEs to help them, but nobody knew where and how to have access to the money. So this issue of blockchain, this issue of data, in my view, has to be at the center of any agenda about helping SMEs grow on the continent. We have to make sure that we prioritize access to information, because this is the way for them to actually thrive. The way in which information is also important is in making capital available, because today it's difficult to price risk in Africa. For example, at the beginning of the panel, Hamet, you were saying that there was about 150 billion of needs that SMEs had in terms of financing. And I think Fatoumata said that for women, it was about 42 billion. Do you know that only the PIC, which is the pension fund of South Africa, has over $150 billion of asset under management? So the issue in funding SMEs is not that the money is not there. It's the fact that people don't know how to price the risk. And for me, blockchain is really a fantastic solution, because it can help really build the trust in helping people price the risk of SMEs accordingly. So to me, it's really important that we are able to leverage the technology to make some of those things happen. Maybe in conclusion, I would like to really insist on the fact that it is critical to really change the mindset that financiers bring when it comes to financing SMEs in Africa. I see, Hamet, that you are smiling, because I need to challenge you. I believe that financiers come to SMEs as if SMEs have to beg for money. I think it's important that the financiers also understand that SMEs can represent a very good return, especially when they get the right assistance. This is the reason why we at ESP launched an initiative that we call La Finance S'engage, where we bring together about 40 financial institutions and we make them commit specific amounts to funding SMEs, and we check at the end of the year whether or not they have done what they are supposed to. And what we have seen is that for the SMEs that really go through such initiatives, we see that the banks are willing to finance them, but what's really important is to bridge the sort of information gap. And in conclusion, I would like to also insist on the fact that through technology, we are really able to provide assistance at scale. For us at ESP, we have actually had a chance to accompany thousands of SMEs over the past 10 years. In 2020 alone, we are going to work with about 400 SMEs across 12 different markets across the continent. What we have seen is that with technology, we are able today to actually assist those SME at scale. So I would really like to emphasize how technology can help us provide intelligent capital at scale. Thank you very much, Hamet.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, indeed, I was smiling, but I will come back to that in a minute. I was smiling not because I thought you were attacking me because I'm a banker, but because I have a banker in the panel. So I thought he will take those questions instead of me. It's my pleasure to now ask Jiří Chotěborský, who is a senior banker at Standard Bank and specialize in telco and media. You've heard Eric. One of the things he said is, for SMEs to grow, they need to access intelligent capital. But he also talked about prioritizing access to information. But something that should speak to you, he said, the ability to price the risk. And very often when we talk about SMEs, we think about everybody think about access to capital, and we said it earlier. Over 136 billion of financing gap every year. For women alone, it's over 42 billion. How do you see the continent leveraging on technology, to address some of those issues and get back to our path to recovery? And what are the lessons that can be learned from elsewhere and Brazil? Thank you. The floor is yours, Jiří.
Thank you, Hamet. Well, a number of the topics have already been raised by Fatoumata, by Eric. Access to financing is a key concern for SMEs. It's even more of a concern in the current COVID environment, which has impacted the whole entire swathes of economies and also the SMEs. In terms of classic banks, the problem there has always been either lack of collateral, either the SMEs limited access to physical branches, or complete exclusion from the formal lending system. So what we look to fintechs to deliver is a solution that would overcome all these three obstacles. And there has been a lot of progress in this area. And I would just mention a couple of the fintech tools that have been developed lately. One of them, and that speaks to the topic of credit, assessing the credit of SMEs, has been the development of alternative credit scoring algorithms, which draw on a wide pool of data, be it from social media networks or mobile phone consumption. And there have been instances of fintechs like Carbon, RenMoney, Migo, who have developed their own alternative credit scoring algorithms and are able to provide unsecured working capital loans to SMEs with minimal documentation. Another example of access to funding for SMEs is Lydia, which disburses small loans to small businesses within 24 hours. Also, time is a critical element. It's not uncommon for SMEs to wait for weeks for a response from a bank about their loan application. So Lydia, for example, uses a proprietary credit scoring algorithm that provides loans and does it on a very quick turnaround. It also provides dashboards and tools to help businesses manage their receivables. Another aspect of how to raise finance through fintechs is marketplace lending. And an example I want to bring is Jumia lending. That uses Jumia's data, the data generated on Jumia's platform, to assess and credit score the various sellers on the platform, and then to bring them together to lenders who can use that data to make an assessment of the risk and to provide loans. Now, again, time is very critical. Feedback can be given over 72 hours. There's also an element for the lenders that Jumia provides a first lien on the sales, so the lenders are covered, which also reduces the risk element of the whole transaction. And the loans are relatively cheap, and they can be from 1 to 6 months. So again, a very good idea of how to bring borrowers and lenders together. And then there's the traditional or the relatively traditional crowdfunding or peer-to-peer lending represented by Thunder Fund, Afrique, which taps into individual investors and also the African diaspora and foreign sponsors. Now, Fatoumata mentioned also one other key element, which is access to markets. And in this respect, again, COVID has had a massive impact. With the restrictions on travel and movements of people, SMEs have literally lost a large amount of their consumers. These have moved their purchases online due to the inability to move, to visit physical shops, but also due to the perceived safety of doing the transactions online. So in this respect, fintechs and even traditional banks like ourselves have provided a solution to SMEs to enable them to migrate into these virtual shops and virtual stores. So in the case of Standard Bank, it's collaborating with MasterCard and Google and provides SMEs free access to its Simply Blue platform, which is an all-in-one e-commerce solution, which is powered by MasterCard Payment Gateway Services. So the SMEs get an instant online presence together with the ability to process digital payments. And Google provides a certain package of free ads, which allows the SMEs to showcase their wares and to access and speak to their clients through the digital channels. There are other instances of these virtual stores or virtual platforms which help SMEs to communicate with their clients. Another one being Flutterwave in Nigeria with Flutterwave Store. Once the SME creates a profile, they can showcase their inventory and link up to a payment option. This is available in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, but will be rolled out also in other countries. And the only fee that Flutterwave will charge, at least for now, is on the payment side. And other companies that offer similar products and similar services include Facebook in terms of Facebook Store and Facebook Marketplace. And yeah, I think that's essentially it.
Thanks a lot, Jiří. I think you made some excellent points, and maybe two that I believe are critical. And come back to what's been said before. You mentioned credit scoring, because very often people do not realize that you actually need some sort of filter or metric to be able to unlearn. And secondly, you also discuss about timing that is critical for day-to-day businesses, and technology can actually come in and facilitate all that. I actually had breakfast with a friend this weekend, and one of the things he told me is to be successful in Africa, you need to understand and control the whole value chain. How do you see that? And that question is for all the panelists, but how do you see that working with the SME system, the SME ecosystem in Africa? I don't know who would like to take that question. Fatou, you're on mute.
Yes, absolutely. So my take on that is actually more, leveraging on, for instance, China's experience, right? When you look at their way of making sure that an SME can have access to the full value chain, for instance, Alibaba was able to work on having enablers, right? So for instance, you want to have access to market, you have a marketing solution, it can be affiliation driven, or you can pay ads, etc. You want to sell, you can use one of the marketplaces. You want to ship, you can use a logistics network that they put in place, and you want some lending, or you want a payment. They have now, Alipay and Financial that are going IPO soon, which might be one of the largest IPOs we've ever seen. So my take is that, of course, when you look at the African champions, such as, the Dangote or even Issa Rebrab in Algeria, they will tell you the same. They try to diversify, controlling all the value chain. But if we take it back to our, SME or MSME, it can be a bit tough. So my advice would be to leverage technology platforms that are providing, enablers for trade, enablers for marketing, enablers for logistics, in a way to bridge any gaps that they have.
Hamet, maybe to build on what Fatoumata said, I would 100% agree. I think of Africa as a land of broken bridges. What I mean by that is, if you are an SME, the bridge between you and your supplier is broken, the bridge between you and your customer is broken. Basically, everywhere you look, the chain doesn't just work smoothly, right? So it's very important somehow to build the relationships across the chain. But I think the way to address this can't be just at the SME level. I think technology is one of the solutions. I think another one to consider is to think about clusters. For example, in one of the projects that I believe Simplice was talking about, the warehouse receipt in sort of agriculture, you have to have a number of players that work together who are all playing a big part in delivering what has to be done. So to me, it's really important that we also look at this issue of repairing the bridges through collaboration and clusters and technology as well.
Thank you. I can actually see that we just came to the allocated time. And maybe before I thank everybody, if you can, spend 5 seconds to give out your last word on the session. Honor to Fatoumata.
Invest in SMEs, but most importantly, invest in women entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Fully agree. Simplice?
Invest in technology and be aware that blockchain can be the future of SMEs in Africa.
Got you. Eric?
Intelligent capital at scale through better information and data.
Excellent. Jiří?
FinTech has the solutions to help the SMEs to survive and thrive when things go back to normal.
Thank you. I mean, I think everything has been said. Thanks a lot for all the panelists for the great comment. And I think the message is clear. Africa is the future. Women in Africa is even more the future. We must invest in women. We must invest in SMEs. We must invest in our youth. But we must, more importantly, invest in our continent and believe in our continent, which we do, by the way. I think we overstepped by 2 minutes. I don't know if Caroline is on the call. Well, if not, I would like to thank you all for the wonderful time you spent. And I also want to thank all our viewers.
Are you hearing me, Hamet?
All across the world. Yes, Caroline?
Okay, sorry, my mic was off. So I'd like to thank you all for this amazing debate. Hamet is an amazing moderator. He has conducted the conversation on the schedule. I'm very impressed, Hamet, with your ability to do this. Oh. Thank you. It was very nice. But I know that you have already talked about and the most important points and insight, but I have a specific question here that I'd like to address because we have some time, Hamet, so don't worry about it. I'm on it.
Okay.
There is a young that has addressed a specific question related to youth. Because we have talked about women, we have talked about the potential for SMEs. And when we talk about SMEs and technology and blockchain, that came to us at first sight, the youth. So I don't know if you can share with us a little bit of some insight, maybe starting with Fatou, about the importance to think on youth, to create some specific projects, to create some specific ways to get the investment, because I think Africa the youth has the core at this moment. So maybe we can try to address this question. This was a really interesting one. And I don't know if you can start maybe with Fatou, for example.
Sure, Caroline, it's my pleasure. And I believe that the topic is critical because you know that we have more or less, I think 65% of our population that is actually made of young people. And this will actually increase, I think, in the next decades. One young person out of 4 worldwide will be African. So it creates both a huge challenge because we said earlier that today we are creating 3 million net jobs per year when we need to create at least between 20 and 30 million net jobs to be able to absorb our growing workforce. And that is why entrepreneurship is so important because we know that it's not, civil servants or, the administration that will employ these jobs, these people. It's not also the large MNCs. It will have to be the SMEs and it will have to be actually entrepreneurs themselves creating jobs for their ecosystems and also creating jobs for themselves. And with all that in mind, it's all the more critical to look at how to help youth. And I think it's also threefold. One is access to education and quality education. Here we have made some improvements over the last decades on the continent, but it's not yet enough when we look at alphabetization rate. 2 is actually making sure that when they got the right education, they have actually the right jobs. What we see in our countries is quite sad. For instance, if you look at Senegal, the rate of people getting higher education degrees is increasing, but we are teaching still people to be, having skill sets that are disconnected to their job market. So it's very important to have training, upskilling, reskilling to be able to get them really ready for the market of today, but most importantly for tomorrow. And then 3, I think because of all the hurdles that we mentioned, it's even tougher when you are a young entrepreneur to raise money. I was mentioning earlier the gap compared to India, for instance, knowing that we have very strong market fundamentals. And that is why, people like us at Janngo Capital, we also write small checks. So for instance, we invest between 50 and 150,000 euros to early stage companies that are led by young African male and female across Africa. And we do that in a way where we also help them de-risk, test product market fit, to be able to help them also scale and attract a later stage funding, a bit later in their journey.
Amazing, Fatou. Thank you very much. Maybe Dr. Kacou can also share some insights regarding youth and SMEs, investments.
Thank you. Actually, in our work, we actually have about 70% of the entrepreneurs we work with that are youth, and we have about 50% that are women. But to be very concrete, let me give you an example. There is a young woman that comes to mind who works in tourism in Rwanda. Her name is Ruth. She actually started a business by setting up a couple of bed and breakfast in a part of the country. And she realized very quickly that there were a number of construction projects that were happening where the staff was looking for food for lunch. So she went to those projects and asked them whether or not she could provide the food for those companies. And through that process, she's actually created something like 50 jobs, right? This is right in the middle of COVID. I cannot overemphasize how important youth are going to be in creating the 12 million jobs that we need every year. They are clearly the solution. Now, to be fair, not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur like Ruth. Not everybody is going to be able to think of a business model, being agile, thinking about, finding in the middle of COVID a new idea that can really change things. So it's not easy, but I believe that we should make mandatory for every youth to have some basic entrepreneurial training, because it does something to the mindset where they start seeing solutions where people see problems. So to me, clearly, youth have to be at the center of the agenda to really transform the continent and create jobs.
That's a very amazing example to share with us, Dr. Kacou. I don't know if maybe Mr. Chotěborský from the Standard Bank would like to let us know, because when talk about youth, we can face some difficulties and troubles to get some financing, to access credits and bank and something related with that. I don't know if the Standard Bank is trying to address some of these questions nowadays.
Definitely, we are also looking at ways of helping youth in terms of access to finance. I think what Eric has mentioned in terms of education, and Fatoumata has also mentioned in education, is critical. It's important that even young people gain a certain element of financial literacy, that they're also able to access some of the formal financial system that is in place. And I think there's a reason to be hugely optimistic. There is a reason why Africa is at the forefront of the adoption of digital payments, and it's particularly because of the youthfulness of its population. And we all know that the younger generation is very adept and skilled at adopting the new digital, the new mobile practices, and essentially looking at how to conduct their lives in a more digital fashion. So as long as youth has the opportunity and the ability to learn about this, then I think there's a huge potential ahead. And what COVID-19 has also shown, that we can also change education to bring it into the modern era. And I know it's almost by necessity that in some cases when schools have closed, education has moved online, but it has proven in many instances that it is not just a substitute, but it actually can be a complementary element of schooling. And I think a lot of countries will start thinking whether a combination of presence in the classroom and online schooling is something that could be rolled out. And Africa, which has embraced the digital lifestyle to a huge degree, I think there's a huge opportunity in terms of online and digital education.
Sure, absolutely. Maybe Simplice, digital is the road for them, is the word for the moment, right?
Yes. I think that we need to emphasize on the training side, because we keep talking about youth, but if youth are not well trained, they will not be able to seize the opportunity. And also the mindset. And I'm very happy about the work that Eric Kacou is doing about entrepreneurship, because you can be well trained, but if you don't have an entrepreneurship mindset, you will not never be able to create your company. And I'm dreaming right now. I would like to see a lot of incubators, coming to Africa, because as a youth, you can have an idea, but you don't have all the skills to build a company. By going through an incubator, you can increase your chance to get access to finance. So again, training, entrepreneurship mindset, and be able to enter, an incubator will be the keys that we need to emphasize in order to get access to market, to increase the success rate of startup.
Perfect, my dear panelists. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for having this extra few moments with us, but I think this was a really great topic for us to approach. Hamet, thank you very much for being our moderator.
Thank you, Caroline. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you
everybody.
all. Thank you all. Bye-bye. We keep in touch.